Hey, Julie here with Just Plain Fun, and today I'm going to show you how to make this block, and I am calling it the Eustis Village block. Eustis Village is actually a town that the town that I'm living in is inside of. Stratton Village is a town inside of Eustis Township, and there's a Eustis Village and there is a Stratton Village. This is the Eustis Village block, and this one's also double-sided. And this one here is made a little bit differently, so I'm actually going to do a tutorial on this one and not just put it together and show you the steps. This section here is done quilt as you piece, and then these pieces here are stitched together, and then they're layered with a strip of batting and added on to this in quilt as you piece. Once these are stitched together, they're put together as if they're one piece of fabric. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So I've already cut out the fabrics, and I'm going to show you a couple of pages from the instructions, but not with the the sizes, because it's not a free pattern. It's 20,000 points or $1.99, and you can get that from Just Plain Fun or jpfun.com. But this is basically what it is. These letters indicate the colors of the fabrics, so you can really, it's about dark light, and there's a medium in here. So, but one thing that I've done, which is fairly new, is I'm now using Accuquilt dies. And all of these pieces were cut with Accuquilt dies, including the batting pieces for this. But you don't have to use the Accuquilt dies, so I'm providing rotary cutting instructions as well as the Accuquilt dies. And I use the 10-inch. For those of you who are familiar with Accuquilt and have the Accuquilt Qube system, this one I use the dies from the 10-inch cube. So I'm new to this, new to the Accuquilt system. But I was able to cut all of these pieces with my Accuquilt Go Cube number 10. This piece, all of them. But the batting pieces, to be honest with you, I had cut some batting pieces, all of these, and I realized, wait a minute, that's not how I'm making this. So this is one long strip of batting. This is one long strip of batting. And this piece of batting here, I could have cut it with the machine, but I didn't. This is the same width. Actually, it's a little bit wider than this. And you're going to make this a little bit wider than you would think. But the idea here is to make them longer than you need because of the nature of doing the zigzag stitching. When you join the batting to it, it tends to stretch a little bit. So you want to make sure that you pull your batting when you're stitching it together. You want to put your batting up ahead of your stitch line, so because the machine will push it down. So that way you know that you will have enough batting, and then the batting gets trimmed off at the end. Now if you notice in this block, it's a little rough around the edges. I did not do the 10.5-inch trimming at the very end. I didn't have to, and that was because of the Accuquilt dies. They are so accurate, unbelievable. But there's a little bit of a learning curve with regards to using the Accuquilt system, but I cannot believe how accurate this cuts. You really should starch your fabrics before you cut. That's one thing for sure. So even scraps, if you have scraps that are not starched, you want to starch those too. So that's what I'm working on also. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and just do these pieces off camera just to get to the point where I can show you what to do, how to piece these. Because if you notice here, the dog ears are already cut off, but they are not on the parallelogram. And there's reasons for that, because you could actually, depending on the pattern you're using, you can stitch them like this together, which when you line them up, they're going to be stitched like this, and you're going to have these dog ears hang out. And you want to make sure that you have your 1/4-inch seam when you do that. But if you were going to be putting in a different block, it would be stitched together like this, or it could be. And, well, let's see. Well, maybe it's this side. Well, anyway, these are directional too. It took me a minute to figure that out. See, you could sew them together like that. They haven't cut the dog ears for that reason, because of the different ways that you could sew them together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do these 3 pieces off camera. If you're familiar with Quilt As You Piece, you know what I'm doing here. If you're not, refer to one of my previous videos about the Quilt As You Piece technique, and you'll learn all about it. Especially start with number 1 if you haven't seen any of the videos, because that explains the whole thing. It's a long video, but it's worth it. So go ahead and I'll get this ready. And this is actually cut to the exact size I need. And so is this fabric, and so is this fabric, but the batting pieces are a little bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and join them, and I will be right back. They probably won't be trimmed off until I'm actually ready to join these to the center. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put these together, and I will be right back. All right, so it's been stitched together. And the next step is to go ahead and stitch these together. And so basically what you want to do, I don't need that. This is the liquid glue I use, and this will be used later. And you're going to be doing regular stitching of both sides. You're going to get them done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you what I'm going to be doing, and then I'll go ahead and stitch both sides. So this is the front, and these are the back side. And what you're going to do is you're going to stitch them together normally, as you normally would in a regular quilt. You're going to put them together like this, and this should line up. Let me pull this one out from underneath it. And here's an opportunity to do chain piecing. So this will line up just like that. And I don't use pins in this method, even when I'm just doing regular piecing in part of it. I actually do glue them together. So I'm going to plug in my iron here. And to demonstrate that, I'm taking just a moment to get this plugged in. All right, so basically what we're going to do, to give that iron a chance to heat up. Okay, this is, oh, I hope I didn't mess this up. Okay, these two go together. These are the front, and these are the back side. So we're going to do the back side a little bit later. And you're going to prepare them as normal, as you normally would with regards to chain piecing. This goes together like this, and you glue it down, and then this wrong piece, I need this one. Okay, then this will go just like that. And yes, you want the little dog ears, but you got to make sure that this little notch right here, this little crossover, actually is at your 1/4 inch, so that way you'll get an accurate seam. All right, so the way I glue them together is I know that that needs to line up here. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to do a little tiny dot inside the seam allowance. And I do this instead of doing pins. It just stays, and I don't need I don't need a walking foot, and I don't need pins. And I just hold it there. I don't move it around. I just hold it there 6 to 10 seconds, and that should do it. And then I'm going to go ahead and do what I can for chain piecing. I'm just going to go ahead and put all these together. Looks like this end will go here. And then just go ahead and glue all your pieces together, and then take them to the sewing machine and do your 1/4 inch seam allowances, chain piecing. You can do the front pieces and the back pieces. But in order to keep yourself organized, I would do all of the top pieces first, and then all the back pieces first with regards to gluing and stacking and getting them ready for the sewing machine. So there's that for now. And then this goes, I would line them up as you normally would. Just like that. And this is Elmer's school glue, just in case you're wondering. And the glue stick that I use for another part of doing my quilt blocks is a washable glue. I don't like it to use the purple stuff. I use the white. All right, set that down. Yep, that's been glued. Set that just in case. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to heat set this one, glue it and heat set it. Okay, I'll prepare the rest of them and get them glued, and I will take them to the sewing machine, and I will be right back. Well, actually, I just wanted to go over what I've glued and what I've prepared for the sewing machine. I'm not doing these pieces just yet. Basically, what I'm gluing together are these 4 corner pieces with the pieces that are right next to them. And I'm doing that for both sides. These here for these, and then these here for these. And then these will get added last. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get those stitched and do my chain piecing, and I will be right back. All right, so they've been chain pieced, and now it's time to cut them apart and press them. And this is just like regular old chain piecing. It's how I join them to the block that makes them different. The difference is in the technique of making these blocks. Yeah, I could have done this part off camera. I just wanted to show you that I did do some chain piecing here. Okay, so basically what you want to do is on the corner square triangles, you want to press to the triangle. And because I glued it, I tend to tug on the fabric a little bit and open it right up. All right. So that's basically what you want to do, is you want to open them up all to the triangle. Well, the corner square triangle. All right, so I'm going to be right back and I'll get those pressed. All right, they're all pressed, and now it's time to figure out where they're going to go on my block. All right, it's going to take me just a moment to get this squared away. This is the bottom one. Just like that. Oops, wrong way. Let's put that one over here. That one goes there. This one goes here. This one goes here. This one goes here. This one goes here. All right, so those are all squared away, ready for the next step. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch these pieces to here. So this one goes here, and again, I'm just going to do one on camera. Make sure that you've got this lined up in the right direction, in the direction that you want them joined. And we're going to do the glue thing. And if you're new to quilting, here's a little tip. You get yourself a ruler that has a 1/4 inch mark on it, like this one, or you can use this one. Any of them that has a 1/4 inch marking on the edge of it. I like to use the little one. what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you lay this on here, you make sure that your seam, this little notch here and this little notch here, are 1/4 of an inch in. And you can do that by just lining up your ruler on it. And see, this looks like it's to be just on, so I'm going to be able to go ahead. In fact, it's actually scant, so that'll work. And you want to line all of them up like that. And once you're happy with where it's located, just go ahead and press it. So I'm going to do this off camera and get all these stitched together, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I have these ready to stitch, and I will be right back. They've been chain pieced, and the next step is to go ahead and press them open again. So basically I tug on them and I press them open. So I will do that and fast forward through this. Okay, so the pressing is done on those. So I'm going to put them in their respective places to prepare for the next step. That goes up here. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to join this to this and these to these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that offline or off camera. One thing I wanted to point out, again, your dog ears have been already cut off for these pieces here, so you just line those up. And I'm going to set this one aside and show you what I mean on this one. See, the dog ear here has been cut. So I'm going to put my glue here. And put this here, lining this edge up with this dog ear that's been cut. Just like that. So that will stick out over there. And you will have to trim that off when it comes time to preparing to sew everything together. So when you go ahead and sew this, it'll be right in line. Okay, I'm just going to fast forward through the rest of these. All right, now on to stitching these. Gather them, whatever, you know, gather them up. So I'm going to go ahead and do my 1/4 inch seam, and I will be right back. All right, so they're all stitched and pressed, and there's something I wanted to talk about with regards to pressing these. So I'm just going to show you on one of them. So what I have done is I made sure that one of the seams, this one here, they're going in opposite directions. So that way when you layer them with the batting in between, there'll be hardly a bump to go over at this point. The other two sections, well, because of this joint here and the fact that you should press out toward the corner square triangles, this is the only seam that you have to be very careful of. So let me open this up and let me show you what I mean. Okay, so if you notice this one's going this way, this one's going this way, this one's going this way, this one's going this way. Those are going to stack on top of each other when you put the batting on. But these will too, so I decided to go ahead and put this one this way, this seam here this way, and this seam here this way. So that way they'll not stack on top of each other. They'll sort of nest even though it's through the batting. And then both of these go out, because you would actually notice it. If you notice on the one that I've done, my points seem to line up exactly where they should be. It's kind of blew my mind. Like this one looks pretty good and this one looks pretty good. And there is a little bit of bulk there, but it can't be helped. But it feels smooth. I wish you could feel it yourself. This seam feels okay, but this one feels even flatter because I made sure that the seams are going in opposite directions. Okay, now the next step is to go ahead, and I'm going to be trimming this up here and here. And because I'm fairly certain that my fabric is accurate, I'm just going to cut off the batting. So I'll do that. So I have my cutting rotary cutter, I have my ruler, and one thing I actually definitely need, I'm just going to line this up here. I like to use a weight to hold my ruler down. It just makes it easier. And I don't have any non-skid stuff on the back of this, so I'm just going to be very careful with my cut and concentrate on the roller and not the ruler. The rotary cutter. I'm a paper bead roller also, that's why I said roller. I've been making paper bead rollers this week. Alright, so I'm going to flip this over and cut off this edge. And like I said, because I used Accuquilt to cut these, I know I don't need to do any trimming on the fabric. Just the batting, because I purposely made the batting too long. Okay, so the next step here is to go ahead and join the strips as if they're just pieces of fabric. So this one will go here, and I'll flip it out. This one will go here, and I'll flip it out. And from here on out, you join everything as if it's quilt as you piece in the same manner. Just make sure you line up your fabric carefully and do the zigzag stitch with the batting. And I'm going to go ahead and do one off camera, and I'll be right back. That side is done, and I'm ready for this side. So basically what I do to get this started here is make sure I have the right strip for the right side. And I'm going to bring this closer to me so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to turn it around just so that the seam is closer to me. And you should still be able to see it. Okay, so basically I put dots of glue here, just like I normally would. And no, I didn't do the stay stitching on the edges. I don't need to. It's glued down. And I'll do the stay stitching at the very end. Okay, so basically I'm going to line this up. And I want to make sure that, I'm going to center it the best I can. Actually, I think I want to make sure that this lines up, because I'm slightly off over here. It's probably because of my seam allowance. And this point should line up with the center, this seam here. So that's what I'm aiming for. And that should line up, which it pretty much does. All right, then you do the dots of glue, you heat set it, do the same thing with the other side. And any of you who've already been watching this series, you know what I'm doing. For those of you who haven't seen the series before, this is the way I do quilt as you piece. I actually use glue. I don't use pins, because pins will distort things. And the glue sets it in place, and it won't move while you're stitching it down. And also another pro thing or positive thing about gluing it down is this also eliminates the need for a walking foot. So, and when this block is done, it'll be done and ready to join to the other blocks. And if you haven't been following this series, these blocks are going to go into a quilt that has sashing, 2-inch sashing. And I will show you how I'm going to join these together. This is block number 23, I believe. So there's only 7 more to go. There's going to be 30 blocks. But this particular block demonstrates the fact that you can do piecing and you can do strips. The whole idea is to have the backside be the same as the front. And you can also use your batting scraps. You can also buy your batting specifically for this. Right now I'm using 100% cotton, and I am using this cotton is from one company that makes their batting in Maine, and the Katahdin Jelly Roll for, you know, making jelly roll I did it again. Jelly roll rugs. And then they have this angel batting. It's queen size. They have different sizes, but I bought a queen size, and I've been using that as well. That's where these 3-inch pieces came from. But I also have used in other blocks 2.5-inch and 2.25-inch wide batting that comes already pre-cut on a roll. And I also want to let you know that you can use that 80-20 fusible batting that Hobbs makes. That works too. I did a whole queen size quilt with that. And I don't have many, well, I have some scraps from this project of the batting, which I can use in crumb quilting. It works, this technique works in crumb quilting. Wow. Anyway, I've already made 2 queen size quilts with this method. So it's definitely worth giving a try. Tell the world. And I'm adding another way of making quilts, especially for those who don't have access to a long arm machine and who don't like to put the whole quilt in the machine for quilting. And I'm using a Juki HCL F300 machine to put this together, but I've been using a Brother machine. It's got an even smaller throat, so it works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stitch this together, and I'm going to put the batting on. The way I do the batting is I'll butt this up against it, and I'll do a zigzag stitch down here. And the stitch length, I haven't told you what that is in this particular video yet. For the quilting, I use 3.0, and for the zigzag stitch, I use a width of 6.0 and a length of 4.0. And for my stitching, when I put this together here, when this seam here is going to be 3.0 for a length. For regular, I just let the machine do what it wants to. Usually it's set at 2.0, so these stitches are normal. But when you're stitching through, you know, 5 layers or 4 layers of fabric and batting, 3.0. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. Oh yeah, and I did 1/2-inch wide quilting on these. I started a 1/2-inch wide or away from the seam, and I went out. And that's what I did here. I started a 1/4 inch from the center, and I went out. And then I did 1/2 inch from this seam and out, all on both sides. And you can see that better on this side here. See, it's just basic straight line quilting. You can do whatever you want. In fact, you could fussy cut something here. All right, so I'll be right back. In fact, I'm going to show this to you with the batting on and this stitched, and then I'll show you how, for those of you who have not been following, how to make sure this is all secure. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, the seam has been done, and it's been zigzag stitched. Now you see how the edges go in a little bit? That's because it's stretched, not because it was cut crooked. That's why you want to make it longer than you need. I made mine probably a 1/2 inch longer than I really needed it to be, so that way I knew that I would have enough. So basically what you want to do at this point, you pull the seam because of the glue, and then you press. You want to set the seam also. And because this is not fusible, I don't care if I put my iron on it. It's fine. But you don't want to do that if it's fusible batting. And like I said, fusible batting is definitely a good way to do this. In fact, my next quilt will be using fusible batting. And the next quilt is going to be somewhat the same as this, but there'll be more of this type of piecing. I've got ideas, and I'm thinking next time I'm going to do 15 blocks, but 2 of each, because those, I think after I'm done with that, I might just have fun with traditional quilting. We'll see. But I have too much fun making my quilts this way. And there is nothing wrong with doing this method and having the back of it be all one fabric. That's definitely okay. Or you can throw in a piece of color here and there. I think that would look really cool. So that's what you want to do. You want to press it, and then you're going to flip it over. And don't forget to do this. I did this for the other day, and I had to take it apart because I forgot to do this, and I had quilted. Yeah, anyway, so I just did this and didn't explain to you what I was doing. I hang on to this because it moves. Watch what happens if I don't. It moves. So you hold on to it just a little bit. You want to put the glue like on the seams. You want to be generous because you don't want the fabric to pucker. But don't worry about lifting this up and doing that. You don't have to do that. And just cover it up with just a thin layer of all-purpose washable glue. This will wash out. It makes the block stiff until you wash it, and then it will be nice and soft. And then you're going to flip it up. You know how you would normally finger press? Well, that's basically what you're doing. And you're going to smooth it out because you want to make sure that that seam is open as far as it will go. And then you iron it down. You heat set. And then you take it to the sewing machine one more time and you do your quilting lines. Quilt as you piece. Notice that I had quilted this, and I quilted this, and then I quilted this, and I did quilt this. I quilted as I pieced. So this is not the first block that I did where I did some piecing and added it. You can build blocks that way, and by letting yourself do that, the possibilities are endless with how many blocks you could do in this manner. The whole point of this is to make the back side the same as the front if you want to. The next quilt, the front and the back are not necessarily going to be the same, but I'm going to do maybe a part of it, like maybe the center might be the same and there might be a frame around it, or I might do a corner the same and, you know, do a log cabin type of thingy around it. Who knows? But you can actually make pieced sections. You can do quilt as you piece in sections, most definitely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and quilt this, and I will give you some final thoughts, or I'll trim it. I'll trim it. Hang on. All right, now I'm ready for its final trim, and basically the focus is to cut the batting off and these little dog ears. That is totally expected. Now I'm pretty confident that my block itself is actually 10.5 inches because I used the Accuquilt dies to cut my pieces out, and I was fairly careful. And even if it is slightly under, I can still compensate when I go ahead and put on my sashing. So let me grab my 10 by 10 square. 10.5 by 10.5. Yeah, see, I'm pretty much spot on. So all I have to do is cut the batting off. But I am going to do a spin around just to make sure that that back side is correct. Put my weight on it just in case. And for those of you who have not been watching my videos, there's a reason for the weight. You could actually use a dumbbell. This is 4 pounds. 5 pounds would be good. But I bought the weight because I also make paper beads, and I use a rotary cutter. I have one specifically for paper, and I do have a ruler for my paper bead cutting. And this is how I used to do it at first. And I would do this, you know, spread them out real wide, and I hurt myself right in here. So I decided to get myself a weight, and that holds my ruler down. So yeah, that's why I have the weight. All right, so this looks pretty good. This is gonna, yeah, that side looks good, this looks good, this looks good. So the only corner that's slightly off is this. No big deal. So I'm going to start here and work my way around. All right, and I'm going to fast forward through this so you can see it fast. Okay, so we're done with the block, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. Here's the front, here's the back. This is the Eustis Village block. If you have been watching my other videos, you know that I have a points program on my website at jpfun.com. If you haven't already, register for a free points account, and you can redeem, get 20,000 points from that secret code that was displayed earlier in the video. And if you watch the other videos, not all of them, but most of them also have secret codes. So for every block that you want, you can go get the secret code, redeem the points, get the points, redeem the points, and get that blocked pattern. Or you can wait until I am completely done with the quilt and buy the book, which there will be a paperback book when I'm completely done. I'm hoping by July, hopefully. So there will be a book with this quilt in it, with all the blocks in it, and it will be basically explaining how to do this. And from that. And I want to thank you for watching, and please, everybody, stay safe. Be good to each other. And until next time, thank you for watching, and have a great day. Goodbye.